All right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. It's very hard to match our intro to like keep the level. I feel like Derek that I would have to come in and start like yelling as soon as the intro comes off because it's so like hyped up, and then we
How
come
many
in and
guys
we're
have
like,
we had that comment on it? They're like, "Wow, you guys are from Jersey," and it's
yeah, exactly. Like it's so hyped up. I feel like I should just come in yelling. You know what I mean? When we come,
like it's like a WWE entrance, right? Like,
yeah, it is. Welcome to the Prospect Podcast. I'm Coach Schumann. I almost forgot my own name. And I'm here with Coach D, Coach DePasco to my left, and we have a fantastic guest today, the head football coach for flag football, women's flag football of Montclair State University, legendary football coach. I'm not talking flag, but regular football in his own right, Coach Kelly. We're excited to talk to him about like I would say the fastest emerging thing in all of football is women's flag football, and we see it a little bit down here at the youth level where we started running a flag football program for the youth boys and girls, and we got asked if we could add girls. The very first year we did it, we got asked if we could add girls, and we did. And we started with like 20 girls, and now our like summer program, we have over 100 girls every summer playing, and then even in the fall now, it's become where we got close to 100 in the fall, and it's growing really quickly. The NCAA is definitely going to start to embrace women's flag football as a whole. NFL has said that there's going to be pro leagues for both men and women in flag football. I know at the NAIA level, they have that national championship now as a actual full college varsity sport. So it's really great to see that Montclair State is really embracing it and bringing in a legendary coach like Coach Kelly to really go through all those things. Coach, it's great to have you on the podcast today to talk about this.
Great to be with you both. Appreciate you having me.
It's an emerging thing, but before we dive into the flag football part, just so everyone can know your background as a coach and what led you to taking over flag football. By the way, if you see me moving, my dog is hyper. I don't usually he's asleep next to me. I don't know. We gave him, some sort of stimulant or something. He drank some coffee. I don't know, but he's like pulling on me. So
maybe it's the holiday spirit. Maybe it's the
maybe the holiday. Maybe he thinks he's getting some extra gifts. So, but yeah, talk about your whole your career, which is legendary, and what brought you to Montclair State.
I appreciate it. I don't know about legendary, but I know it's been lengthy. 36 years, 19 as a head football coach and 17 as an assistant. My career as a head coach started back in Clifton. Got some very successful years from 92 to 97. Then I went back to my alma mater over in Nutley from 98 to 2004. Then I was an assistant. It was a great experience. My first trip back to Montclair State from 2005 to 2012. We had a great run there. Couple NJAC championships, a couple NCAA tournament NCAA games. Lost a tough game out in Mountain Union. I remember it was really a great experience here being at Montclair for the first time. And then I took over a program at Colwell University, the sprint program. I don't know if many people know what that is, under lightweight football. So some people know what it is. We were there. I was there for 5 years. We lost 2 championship games to Army, which were was a real great accomplishment. We had a great winning percentage in the last couple of years. And then I'd be honest with you, I was gonna. I saw this when you say transitioning to the flag. I saw this growing in my local town. In my local town of Nutley in Essex County, there was a lot, just like you said, a lot of young girls playing the game. And I was involved in our feeder. I've been involved in our feeder program in Nutley for years, since I was a head coach, prior to and afterwards, because I always like to give something back to our community. And I saw that there was a lot of girls involved. And then I was invited to a Quest Diagnostics, one of our local, actually one of our adults that was involved in our feeder program, Ethan Medley. He's the Giants community engagement coordinator. And he invited me to a flag football clinic over at the Quest Diagnostics. And I just was really knocked on my, heels as far as the quality of young ladies that were playing the game and what they were doing. It wasn't, and don't take this the wrong way, it wasn't walking into a phys ed class or a bad phys ed class. It was young ladies with a skill level and trying to play at a high level. I mean, Eli Manning was there. Not that he wasn't the deal breaker, but my point is there was some important people there trying to teach the game to young ladies who were really embracing it. And then as I saw this, I was reached out by a couple other locals here in Essex County to run some clinics. I actually ran a clinic over in New York State at St. Joe's of Brooklyn, which now has a collegiate program. And then I met with some people here, in the Northern New Jersey football circles, Benji Wimberly up in Passaic County. We talked about the emerging of flag football. And also talking to Rob Chesney, our athletic director, we talked about it. And, it still was in its infant stages. But then fast forward to last spring, we started a club program here. Probably was like March, April. They asked me to have like 6 or 7 practices with a group of girls that really didn't have in the club sports at the collegiate level, they don't have coaches per se. They started with themselves. So they asked me to come get a little more organized. I brought in a couple assistants with me, and we actually organized some practices. And then, then moving forward, I guess Montclair State and the administration decided to move it as an NCAA sport, which we're transitioning to a league. It's going to be branded by the ECAC and backed by the New York Jets. And we're going to be playing anywhere between 14 to 15 games this coming spring. So we're transitioning from a club sport into an NCAA sport. When I'm excited to lead this endeavor, and the culture and the administration, everyone here is very excited about the product to come.
You must have muted yourself again.
Yeah, I muted myself. Well, I muted myself to make sure there was no background noise from my side. But it's such an emerging sport. It's really interesting to see, and I think your point is really valid. Like you watch the girls, and now obviously you're coaching women play, and the way they're moving it, and it's amazing how when the opportunity comes, all of a sudden their skills start to really they start doing the same things that boys do in football. Figuring out a way to get better at their skill sets. There's endless amount of trainers in the world to be able to help them do that. And it's amazing. Like we just had our tryouts, our first tryouts for like our 7-on-7 club, and we have the girls flag travel go there. And we had a girl that was 11 years old. I mean, she could start for Derek's high school team. That's how good she was. And his team was very good. So I couldn't believe it, how good she was. And it was so interesting because the boys that were 11 were like, they actually enjoyed having her come and compete with them. And she wanted to compete with them. Like it's amazing how they're really emerging and developing those skill sets and getting themselves better. What was kind of your, like when you took it over, it's obviously new. And you're starting to build it up. Like, what are you seeing response-wise from I guess would you say like the recruiter marketplace from this standpoint for players?
Well, it's funny you say that. I just want to backtrack on something you said because prior to me taking the position or moving it from club to transition to NCAA, I talked to Roger Cutlars, who's Roger was at Wayne Valley, now he's at Marist, and very successful. And also Brian O'Connor up at Mount Olive. These are two very successful, men's traditional football coaches. And they talked about, especially Roger talked about when you meet with your team. We all meet with our teams, no matter what sport it is, and it's a blank sheet of paper. Well, in this case, you're talking about young ladies. I walked into a club team not knowing really the skill level. And there were some girls that were here that were going to school here that had played in the North-South game. The Phil Simms game now has a North-South game, and they played in that played in there. And there were some girls that were athletes in their high school careers, but not flag football players per se, or maybe had 1 year. So everyone had a different level of skill level. And then now all of a sudden I'm trying to install an offense, and I'm trying to, and there was no greater, the satisfaction I'm getting is seeing girls that are taking their skill levels now and then increasing their football IQ. And whether it be on a Zoom call or like this, or maybe through our team chats, we have young ladies that are watching NFL games now, looking for hots, looking for the coverages and recognizing that. And that's probably been one of the biggest, senses of accomplishment right now, because we haven't really played any games, but just see us moving the needle from girls that are starting to understand the game and they're able to implement their skill level on the field, and they make it to another level.
It's incredible. It really is incredible. The amount of participation that's going to continue to grow, the amount of not just recreation, which is starting to grow, but there already is, I feel like travel's ahead of the number of recreation players. Like, a lot of kids have jumped right in, girls have jumped right into travel because there wasn't recreation programs in a lot of places, but that's starting to, it's kind of a weird thing where that got ahead of recreation, because in the beginning you only had so many girls that wanted to play, right? Probably a girl that was a really good athlete in another sport, and they had some interest in football, or had a brother that played football and they wanted to do it. So travel got ahead of recreation, but that's why we built this recreation component. But I noticed everybody else follows, in Middletown, the first in Middletown to have a recreation team, league. Now Middletown AYF has their own girls thing. Linecroft, which is an NFL flag, whatever you call it, subsidiary, I guess. They have their own franchise, I guess. They have their own girls flag division now. So it's really incredible how that in a short time, what you basically need in each area is a guy like you, you know what I mean, guys like us that go and say, you know what, I'm just going to go do it and deal with the fact that the first year I got 15, 20 girls, and figure it out that it's not going to be the perfect system. But once you start to do it, you start to get more. And once you get that pool of girls to start to play, we have girls that have been in it since the first year. I was watching them play. They're now they're very upset because we go up to 12. We go to 14. My kind of theory was, when you go to 14, you have girls that starting to focus on a sport. And the ones that want to play flag probably will have to go to travel. That's why we kind of started travel too, because those older girls are going to have to go to travel, because we may not have as many in the rec area. But those girls are heartbroken. They're like, can we play again? I'm like, well, if we get enough, I'll do 14 for you guys at rec. But they've been doing it for 4 years. So they've been playing it. And I started watching them in the 12U this year for the 4th year of them doing it. Or 4th league of them, maybe it's 3 years, 4th year, but league of them playing in it. I couldn't believe it. I remember these girls, when they first started, catch and throw, and Derek probably remembers this. Derek was running like the Maryland Eye with them, because in the beginning, a lot of girls couldn't, right? They were having a hard time pulling flags, or were having a hard time catching, and you get a girl who could run, it was strong, you get some yards. But now they're chucking it around. They're throwing. They understand everything. I couldn't believe it. I went over those girls, and they remember I'm like, I can't believe how good you guys have gotten. They're ready for high school now. At I guess they're going to be 13. At 13 years old, those girls are the majority of them are ready if they want to play in high school right now. And it's so cool to see, because a lot of girls hit puberty earlier than boys do. So at 12, 13. There might be the height that they're going to be, you know what I mean, as an adult. So they're able to do some amazing things right from the get-go once they start. I'm curious if you see this being a whole kind of development system that will be integrated with what you guys are doing at Montclair State down the line, to be able to get players to come to you guys and foster that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. There's so many club teams throughout the state of New Jersey. There's All Girls Flag. There's the Southern New Jersey Flag, and they're doing they're doing a great service to these young ladies that want to play. And like you said, I've seen some towns that have just a rec program, certain grade levels. Now all of a sudden they're expanding to club teams, so now they're traveling teams. And a lot of those teams actually have been up on our campus at a certain point to use our fields, in other words, for tournaments. And I know there was even a combine this past week down in Gillette, in a couple of those different center court venues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of different things. The growth is going to keep on growing, and all that does is give us a pool of more student athletes that possibly want to play, at the next level, want to play collegiately. And the state is doing a great job now. I know they had a meeting, I believe, last year, and I know the NJSIA is involved now as far as sanctions, as far as how they're going to roll this out, and then that also carries over to what the NCAA is doing now. It's going to become an emerging sport, so there's almost like a catapult effect where everything's going to be steamrolling going forward, where more and more players are getting involved. And then right now at the collegiate level, there's really not Division 1, 2, and 3. Like you said earlier on, there's NIA, there's NCAA teams. So what we're excited about right now in Montclair is we're going to be in the ECAC, which is going to be the largest collegiate league in the country right now, which is not, it's in its neophyte early stages, but we have 20 teams that are going to be involved. Okay. And looking at our schedule, we could play a team that's a Division 2 team, or we could play a team that's a Division 1 team. Locally, Staten Island's a very hotbed for flag football. And
THT out there does a really good job.
Yeah, we're playing Wagner later on in the season. That's one of our big games later on in the season. But we're excited about that because we see the growth. I think it's just a matter of time before. And Derek, you might agree because you played here, where we have every team in the NJAC possibly having a team. In other words, I would be excited about that. Right now, we're in the ECAC, but I see growth, across the board. And I think part of it, this came out, you talked earlier about the numbers of people playing. They say the viewership for the NFL Super Bowl is 48% female now. So, and I don't know there's some correlation with that. And then if you watched, and I think it was this previous Super Bowl, not last year's Super Bowl, there was actually a flag football commercial during the actual Super Bowl, if you remember that.
Yep,
all these things add up to the growth of the sport. But in my inner circles, the people that are coaching these sports or people that I've worked with before on the recruiting trail, whether it be here as an assistant at Montclair or as the head football coach at Colby University sprint team, and there's a carryover. All these, so there's the football that's being played in the fall. Some of the same people are really crossing over now into the flag football game and trying to bring the best in a flag football atmosphere.
Yeah, Coach, and you definitely hit the nail on the head with that one because look, coaching girls flag down here in the Shore, like majority of the guys that we're coaching against are either assistants or head coaches, right? And that's the same kind of across the board. The way that the NJSIA is kind of rolling it out, I'm glad that they're being somewhat patient with it because they want to get the foundation, like a really good, strong foundation that's in place so that they're kind of doing it the right way. They're not rushing something out there. The state itself is especially this year, I know for us down here in the Shore, everybody's trying to match it up where rules are very similar, if not the same, right? So they're trying to make it kind of standard across the board so that next spring, 2027, when they roll it out and it's no longer considered a club sport, everybody's kind of on the same page. And I think it's just adding another opportunity for young girls to look to that next level to do something, right? In terms of college athletics or, just be involved in something. That was one of the biggest eye openers for us taking over with a first year program, to see the level of girls that their knowledge of the game was already above and beyond what we were expecting, but also the willingness of the girls that maybe didn't really understand the game or had never played before to just try and improve and get better. And throughout the season, it was phenomenal the way it was structured where, you're playing 4 quarters of a varsity game, but you're also throwing 2 quarters of a JV where those younger girls that really younger or just inexperienced didn't know it could get it and kind of understand it. And now you saw that growth and it's across the board, right? Because look, the competition level, yes, everybody wants to win, everybody wants to go to the playoffs and do all that, but for each of the girls to kind of understand it, and then all of us working together, whether we're opponents on the field or whatnot, like that, I think too, the network of let's grow this all together is something that for you guys at the collegiate level can only help, because now, across the board, everybody's trying to improve it. Everybody's trying to structure it the right way so that you can literally come in just like boys, recruit, know what it is. Like I said, that North-South all-star game where you have girls across the state, and for Montclair State already having that kind of solid track record of, doing right by most things, like that's kind of where it's at. So people hear that, and now there's an appeal. Like, I can play this, right? I can play girls flag and see an opportunity where I know it's my second sport, or, when it becomes a real sport, I'm still going to run track so that I'm not, flag's going to kind of I can now go and make flag my number one sport and get a scholarship for it.
It's just to follow up, because in the fall, the way we set it up as an NCAA sport here, again, and that's everywhere, you get, we have our spring ball, which is actually our fall ball. So we had 20 practices this past fall. And by NCAA rules, you're allowed to have one competition in the fall, okay, at the Division III level. Unfortunately, the teams that we tried to reach out to play, right now, my roster has 25 girls. They're just flag football players. They don't play any other sports, okay? In other words, they're just flag football players. Some, again, I told you, were new. Some were from the North-South game. Some were at different skill levels. But the teams that we reached out to carry over to your point, there was teams that couldn't field the team that we wanted to scrimmage because they were playing other sports at their universities or collegiate level, which is fine. But so we ended up having an inter-squad game. We actually filmed it. We put it on huddle. We were able to evaluate that. But I can see, I'm curious to see going forward when the NCAA, okay, and the collegiate and the high schools in New Jersey also get together on the same page. How many girls are just going to commit themselves just to playing flag football? In other words, because right now, I've been down to Southern Part. I've been down to Camden County, Burlington County. I've been down to the Shore Conference. I've been up here in Northern New Jersey. The NJIC, the Super Football Conference, they're all playing, but are they playing other sports besides? So right. On the recruiting trail, I asked that question, and not that I deter anyone, girls, from playing other sports. I just want to know where their true passion is or what their really goal is from a flag football standpoint, which is kind of interesting to see how that's going to unfold.
No doubt about it. It's go right to basketball, soccer, and lacrosse and track.
Right.
Those big four, go and start grabbing the superstars there. And get those girls focused on some flag football when they see those opportunities. I see it as like, especially from a standpoint with Title IX, the opportunity because football is always the hardest thing to overcome. Obviously, now I'm saying men's football, but football to overcome from a Title IX standpoint, they have to add all kinds of subsidiary sports in a lot of cases that has very low participation at the high school level. You know what I mean? And I think that always becomes very difficult. Flag football really is going to be a sport that's not going to have that issue. I don't see.
No.
You're going to have plenty of participation. You're going to fill whatever they decide to have as the number of roster, limits at it. You're going to be able to fill that with quality players, and you're going to be able to backfill that with high school players that are coming through that'll be quality players. So, I hate to pick on crew, but like how many people have crew in their high school, right? So all these Division I schools that have crew, they're literally, that's how you get like those. If you remember a few years ago, that crazy whole scandal where people were like paying to be able to get their kids to be like a roster spot person, because in some of those sports, they were really, it made some sense for universities to like let them pay them because it was like, we need to fill this spot for Title IX because we're trying to make up for football. Flag football immediately comes probably like a 20 spot position that goes right to Title IX for women, and it allows them to have a better situation with respect to men's and women's sports overall without having to try to figure out how we're going to get athletes from the high school level or even a transfer portal to be able to get people in there. I think that's the beauty of flag football. It'll be just like softball or soccer, where it's going to fill right in with a huge number of people. Of course, that'll be probably 5 years from now, that'll be a whole different thing, because your recruiting will go from being one thing to all of a sudden being like a really, really large area. But I had talked to Derek about this. Like, to me, it's like those 1.0 coaches that do really well in a sport. It reminds me of women's basketball, when like first there was Pat Summitt, the Louisiana Tech coach, and Vivian Stringer, and they became legends because they jumped right. They played themselves, jumped right on that opportunity, and built programs that were for a long time, until Gino Ariema came along, were unstoppable, right? And Gino's like the 2.0, and he's still unstoppable because he's really, it's really just a second generation. It's like the equivalent of, when Newt Rockne led Notre Dame in the 1910s, right? Like, that's very new. That's allowed. He learned the forward pass, and that made Notre Dame and himself into a legend. That same thing with Pop Warner, right? Those kind of. So I think that those coaches that embrace it, programs that embrace it, have the opportunity to get a leg up, and it's amazing that Montclair State has really like jumped into the fray from that.
I love it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and because of not only coach's connection to the area itself, not just Essex County, but Dave, like, you understand, how the network within it works, right? So they see Coach Kelly's name on it. Like, that adds an appeal right away. There's a level of, okay, this is going to be done right. Montclair State adds another level of it, right? Like, they have their own reputation that adds to it. So you're just adding two positive. And then geographically, the area, right? Like, we're talking girls flag has been pretty established up there for a while now, where you're dealing with a lot of high level teams, players across the board. It's kind of, hotbed is a cliche word in a way, but you're seeing some really, really good players coming out of that area with the reputation of Montclair State, where, hey, I want to go be a teacher and a coach. Like, why would you not do that with an in-state type of tuition situation and be able to play, a sport that's up and coming, and stay at home where mom and dad can come and see you, or just that type of appeal to it itself, and coach referenced it. Like, he wants, like, hopefully most of the NJAC schools can get on it. Coach, can you kind of talk about some of the other schools within the area that are that are also doing this? Like, yes. I know we talked a little bit, but what other programs, in the, kind of tri-state area are also doing girls flag on this level?
Right. So just in the ECAC, there's ECAC, which is the governing body of this 20-team league. Now, it's new. There's also some independent teams. There's the Atlantic East. There's a Skyline Conference. Locally, Derek and Coach Shu, you have Kane, you have Centenary, okay, up here in northern Jersey. You have Stack, St. Thomas Aquinas across the New Jersey, New York border. You have Mercy in Dobbs Ferry. You have Eastern down in Philadelphia, which they had a very successful.
Oh my God, boys, unbelievable! Listen, yeah. I had a player that visited there, and he's all about it. I mean, a beautiful campus. Like, they're doing the right thing there too, Boys Ed. But that adds an appeal too.
Right. Then you have in New York, you have St. Joe's of Brooklyn. Then you have the CACC. Okay, obviously I came from Caldwell University from the sprint team. They're starting a program now, Caldwell, in that whole league. I believe.
Yep, we talked to Coach.
Okay, Caldwell, Holy Family, I believe Chestnut Hill. Like, there's going to be 4 or 5 teams from that league that are going to be involved. It just keeps on blossoming. And then I'll get emails from teams, Allegheny, Albright, okay, Elmira, Sacred Heart sent us an email. They want to get a competition with us this spring. So you can see, but you're seeing not only the demographic, but the size of the schools at Wagner, okay, size of the schools. Okay. It's just a matter of time now. We don't think Rutgers is going to have this. I would think that, and I know they have a club team right now, but when are they going to take this step to NCAA? Then you look at Monmouth down by you guys, Monmouth University, obviously, I think I could see it happen. It's just a matter of time, I think. Again, depending on what the NCAA and their governing body, puts out there, it's going to be a, full-fledged Division 1, 2, 3, or the different leagues. Maybe just have a New Jersey league. In other words, and you have hypothetically, Rutgers playing Montclair State, Monmouth, Kane, Setner. I'm just giving a possibility, depending on who jumps in. But I can see this to continue to grow because, one, like you said, there's a need for the young ladies to want to go play somewhere. And everyone can't go to one school. And then you got to realize it's not like recruiting. When I say a roster size of 100 players in the NJAC,
right.
You can be at 130. My roster size is 25, and the reason being because we only play 7 girls at a time. Now, hypothetically, there might be a couple girls that play both ways. Ideally, you like to have 7 on offense, 7 on defense. You do have a special team. You have a punt and a punt return. You could put another 7 girls out. So let's look at 21 max. I mean, in other words, if you brought in 7 girls for each part of the game. So that alone, there's a one roster right there, a roster of 25. So that's just one school. So, but these girls that are coming, and I visited some schools are just starting a club team, and one guy from a local school in North Bergen County, he had a 60 girls come to a tryout. 60 girls, yeah. Like Coach Shu said, 60 girls. I mean, he knows he can't keep 60 girls. Even if he keeps 20, there's 40 girls that still want to play the sport. So in other words, this is going to keep on evolving. And listen, I know that Montclair we're at the the forefront right now, and I hope that we can continue to be leaders in the sport. At the same point, I hope the sport continues to grow. Like you said, like it's the people that I've talked to, whether they be a high school coach or a collegiate coach, they're all about growing the sport. It's not, and we all have egos, and I say this, as coaches, we talk about wins and losses, but right now that's not what the sport's all about. It's about growing the sport. My wife happens to work for NBC. She's talked about the growth, that's going to be in the Olympics, in 2028. There's a lot of things going on outside of it. And the NFL is really pushing everything. In other words, if you go to the state of Minnesota, they're subsidizing all the teams, collegiate teams in Minnesota, with some kind of money to help all those teams in Minnesota to start a collegiate league. So it's not just locally. It's not just at the state level. It's not just at the national level. It's at the NFL pushing the market also.
Is the NFL doing any funding for the collegiate level? So do they have any grants that Montclair State or other universities can go and get from the NFL in order to jumpstart their program and build their rosters?
And I can only speak for our league, the ECAC, which is branded by the Jets. The Jets are going to make it once your schedule has been submitted and you've been approved. Okay. And now remember, there's some teams that have joined this ECAC. We're ready to play. We went club last spring, club in the fall, and that we're looking to play an NCAA schedule in the spring or play a legit schedule in the spring. Some teams join the league, okay, and they're not ready to play. Like the teams from the CACC or some other leagues are not ready to play this coming spring in a competitive nature. But to answer your question, yes, depending on what league you're in, you're going to have some type of grant money coming from a particular NFL team that you're assigned to. And I know that when I went down and watched Immaculata down in Philadelphia, was the Atlantic East. It was Immaculata, Newman, Marymount from Virginia, and Centenary. They're in the Atlantic East. That was all from the Philadelphia Eagles. They were putting some financial backing. So to answer your question, depending on where you are demographically and the size of your league, just like they did with the high schools. A lot of high schools in New Jersey were backed by, the NFL were backed by the Jets. So there's going to be a fallout as far as where you are located, as far as what team is going to particularly back you. And I understand there's a big push down in Florida. It's been going on for years with Tampa, and Miami, and Jacksonville pushing a lot of their money to the growth of the sport.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, in this area, it's emerged tremendously. Like several teams, I know the team in Staten Island won the national championships or whatever.
Right.
And it's boomed, especially at the elite level. Some of those teams are really good. In Florida and Texas and California, I mean, there's not just a few elite teams. There's like a zillion of them. You know what I mean? And which is really amazing. Because they were so ahead of the curve on it, but the Northeast is probably next after those three, and I kind of grouped the Northeast a little more because obviously there's not as much population as the whole state of Florida, or the whole state of Texas, or the whole state of California, but the Northeast as a whole has really been like the fourth place that has really embraced it, and I'm certain that Chicago Midwest area is probably the fifth, where that is starting to really boom. But it's amazing, and the upside is like just phenomenal for the women to be able to do that. What are some of the things that you really like enjoy about working with? So having worked with obviously male athletes for so long, and now working with female athletes, what are some of the differences you see, and what are some of the things that you've enjoyed in coaching flag football? Because you might have some coaches that probably would enjoy to do it, but think, I don't know how to handle female. I've only coached male athletes my whole entire life, type of deal.
Well, it's funny you said that because I was a varsity football coach at the high school level for many years, but I was also a softball coach, in the spring. So I coached varsity level, JV, and freshman. And I say this, that I felt comfortable coaching young ladies and understanding that. But taking it back to the football field, the enjoyment is like I touched on earlier. There's different levels of understanding the game, and when you see them go from point A to point B to point C, whether you put in an offensive formation or put in motion, and I'm a big shift guy, and I'm shifting, and you see them understand that, and to see them accomplish something, and actually want more. In other words, they want more.
Yes.
We're in winter break right now, and girls have been texting me, Coach, where can I go work out? Like, they want to work out on their own. And some of them are South Jersey girls, some of them are North Jersey girls. They just want to go out and work out because they want to make their craft the best they can. I think that's some of the enjoyment is they're hungry to actually, improve the product for themselves as individuals, but also in a team culture. They want to make our team better. So I think that's something, not that you didn't see that. We always see that as, on the rank when I say, or traditional football programs, but to see this young ladies, because it's so new, they understand that when we compete in the spring, most of the teams that we're competing against either have been first year, second year, third year programs. They want to make sure they're ready to compete at a high level. I think that's the most enjoyable thing. They want to make sure that they're ready to go and be competitive. And that's, I think, something. When you see girls compete and they're competing with each other in practice, and they're competing, and like you said, getting better every practice, those are some of the rewards, that come back to any coaching. No matter, it doesn't matter, I remember, we've all been on interviews where they say, well, you're teachers. We're teachers of the game. So we're teaching them a new game, and a new way to do things. And it's kind of interesting to see the transition from someone that really didn't know. Now all of a sudden they have an idea. Now they want to be an expert. In other words, and that's something
right.
That as a coach, you feel you kind of embrace that challenge. And when they're embracing the challenge, that I'm embracing this challenge as a new coach of a new program, and trying to put it in a place where it can be successful.
No doubt about it. It's an amazing thing. Talk about like what you think are some of the important steps that are necessary for your program, I guess, first and foremost, to like continue to build, and then other programs that might be starting in this process.
Yeah, I think that no matter what sport you're coaching, especially at the collegiate level, and probably the reason why we're talking right now is about relationships. It's all, no matter what we do in our life's journey, it's about building relationships. And right now, I've taken some of the inner circle relationships that I have with just the traditional men's football program and transitioning that over to the female coaches that are the flag football coaches that I know. And next thing you know, I think that you have to put yourself out there and let you know that you want to be in a situation where you can help the young ladies become, obviously student athletes, play collegiate sport at a high level, but also prepare them for after college. So in other words, Montclair State, as being here as an alum, like both of my daughters went to school here. They're both, one's married to an alum, one's engaged to an alum. The institution itself, and I think it's important that people understand that you're going to have to create an environment and a culture on the field and off the field where young ladies understand that flag football is the vehicle that we're talking about, but what the sport can do for them when they're done also. I think that's important, no matter where you're starting the sport, that it's going to be about flag football, but what is your institution going to do afterwards, after flag football is over?
I think that's a key component. Like, what are you going to do from that process going forward, and how you continue to build, and the commitment levels to it too, right? Because eventually it becomes a resource thing. It's one thing to get grants and to get started, but like continuing to to use the resources that you have, and then to be able to build resources, because it will. As I think it's going to become obviously very popular very quickly, and with that becomes, oh wow, in order to be good, like just like you said, the women are starting to ask, like, where could I go, who could I train with, how do when I'm not here, like what can I do in order to get better, and in order to do that, I think that eventually it becomes a resource thing, right? Like all of a sudden you'll turn around and you guys have a fully committed, coordinated strength and conditioning off-season program, type of deal, like really, really quickly, that because the athletes will eventually be, this is what we want to do in order to be good, right? And obviously that becomes a resource component too as well. But it's very, very, it's very interesting because when you cited at the beginning the NFL statistics about the amount of females that are watching football, like being 48%. And I think that the NFL, obviously, which is always looking at these, from a business standpoint, always going to be looking at these analytics and these numbers to try to figure out how can I get more fans in the long run. To me, ultimately, that's a big part of a lot of for the NFL product, like by building flag football, having professional leagues. I'm sure they're trying to build that. But ultimately, what it does is keeps them involved in the NFL product, right? And keep them enjoying, which is obviously their biggest probably cash cow of all by far, is the NFL product. And so doing these outreach and these community programs and helping be able to build the structure of that allows for that part of it, because ultimately that's one of the things that I think has been so big. But even on the boys' side with like flag football and the push for it, is that like they're trying to create more fans of the NFL game and everything around it, because at that level it's not just obviously the competition, but there's entertainment, right? It's like literally an entertainment product and everything that surrounds it. Do you see like standardization as far as rules? Because that was one of the things that I thought. Because I remember when Derek was describing to me how the rules are for New Jersey, right? Now, NFL flag rules are different from that, and they have their own rules. Obviously, they have their own championships or whatever they do. Ultimately, for the success, like I think what makes regular football very successful is that at the NFL level, these are the rules. At the college level, these are the rules. At the high school level, these are the rules. And then if you go all the way down to youth, for the most part, there's similar rules. Youth is probably the only one that there's maybe a little bit of variance from league to league. But really, pretty much, there's a phenomenal standardization of the rules, right? And that standardization creates, in my opinion, more participation, because everyone knows what they're getting product-wise, all the way up, and they know how to adapt over time. Like I know when my kid moves from 11U to 12U in football, this is what the football size is going to be, right? I know when he goes to high school, this is what the football size is going to be. College, this is what the football, NFL, this is what the football is going to be. This is the rules of the field. This is how wide the hash marks are. These are the downs we're going to use. These are the number of players on the field. Do you see that as becoming something that's really, really important in order to grow the sport?
Yeah, 100%. And I actually, in our fall ball, I brought in an official to talk about rules interpretation. Even in his presentation, he gave his interpretation of the rules, and he said, but these are subject to change. In other words, right. I think for this to happen, for let's use New Jersey alone. New Jersey, if I go recruit New Jersey, I went and watched many games during club last year in May, and I saw the Northern New Jersey playing, and I saw the Southern New Jersey playing. Then I went to New York State, which is over. I went to Tappan Zee, right over New York State borderline. all playing by a little bit different set of rules with timing, with how they were interpreting blocking, all those things. So I even talked to our commissioner of the ECAC, and I also talked to I don't know if you know Mark Batar. He's one of the signers.
Oh yeah, Mark. Yeah, absolutely.
I talked to him.
He my games back in the day when he was a young guy. Yeah, yeah.
Well, again, he's the ACC replay official now. You know, he's been busy this week with the CFPs, the College Football Playoff. But to answer your question, we talk about a product, and we talk about a good product. For that to happen, for us to have a sustained product and a product that's being played at an elite level, you're going to have the rules at the high school level, in the collegiate level, whether it be NIA or NCAA, no matter what level team you are, to be on the same page. I think that's very important. I think, and I'm looking for a rules book from our federation, from the ECAC, so I can actually do an interpretation meeting with our players. Because even I've talked to our players that played at some very good schools, Wayne Valley being one of them, okay, locally, PCTI being another one, and just talk about what the rules were when they played. Not that they were different, but how were they interpreted? In other words, I think that's going to be very important for the growth of this sport and also the safety of this sport. In other words,
yeah, absolutely.
That's the most important thing. We're talking about rules and realizing that they say this is a non-contact sport. And one of the conversations I had with someone from an NFL team, they said, because think about this. Yeah, there's a difference between a 14-year-old girl going as fast as they can, or a 21-year-old young lady going. So we're worried about the safety of the rules, okay, making the game better for the game, and also make sure that everyone's on the same page. Good point.
That's a phenomenal explanation, and I think that it's so important. Like rules, people don't realize how important that standardization is, because it does create. Like I feel like it has to be like, these are the things that are the standard. You can vary your rules league to league within this small component. You know, we don't care if you vary, but there has to be a large set of standardization that happens at each level, and so people know that that progress. And you know who to recruit. Like, so Derek knows who to recruit for his high school team, right? Like, does he need more speed? Does he need a person more skilled? How you play the game dictates a lot. Do I need a bigger, stronger girl? Do I need a taller girl? Like, what kind of athlete do I need to play this sport well? Does my quarterback need to move? Does my quarterback not need to be able to move? You know, right. Can they just sling it? Like, and that's why I brought up the NFL rules. Like the NFL flag rules, like when we play in our leagues and some of these other leagues, the QB can run a certain amount of times, right? Well, the NFL flag league that we play in the spring, you can't run the quarterback, right? The quarterback cannot take off, right? So that's like, wow, okay, so that's very different. But they could blitz you as much as they want. So they've got to be able to move, but they can't take off down the field. So it's almost like, I need a guy who could sling it, get rid of it quick, and is quick. Doesn't have to be fast, but has to be quick to just quickly escape and scramble, right? So, but they don't need to be able to run down the field and score touchdowns. Whereas in Derek's league, right, the quarterback can run, right? So you want, yes, you can get a pure runner that could really be very effective and can do some passing, right? So that is where standardization becomes a big deal. Like, what do you want the athletes to kind of be? Because I think that if you know what you want to get out of the sport, like what you want to happen on the field, like, do you want women to be blocking each other, right? Do you want them?
That's a big part of it too. Like, you know, in talking to obviously like the network within, like buddies that coach up north and down here, like the first thing that came out was up north was, hey, like, it is not like 7-on-7 where you're just chucking it all over. And then looking into it a little bit more based off of rule wise, like down here, throw more because there's less emphasis on blocking. Whereas up north, like they have more of that blocking component involved where they were running the ball more, like, you know what I'm saying? So like that does play a huge role. And even so more, and even so far as look, like you said, this is the ground floor. We're all trying to figure it out. Just referees in general of understanding what it is. You know what I mean? It felt like last year a little bit, and I'm not bagging on refs or anything, because they're trying to figure it out too, and they're doing us a favor by doing it. But like every week, it felt like every game was something different. Or hey, like you can't do that. It's like, well, I did that last game and nothing was said, but okay, no, that uniformity of kind of getting it all under wraps and like, hey, here's how we're going to do it. I think that's pivotal, especially when now we're trying to make it more, like it's like uniform across the state, where there won't be that separation of North Jersey, Central, South. Like we're all doing the same thing. That way, when we get to like, the bigger aspect of like playoffs and all that kind of stuff, when it really is a sanctioned sport, like now we're all on the same page and we can kind of all move forward with it.
I think that's a great point, because even the high school coaches, the South and the North, they have different rule interpretations. It's got to be congruent, where everyone's got to be on the same level. Especially, let's say hypothetically, let's say you have 12 teams in New Jersey, college teams next year playing, or 10 teams playing. They're coming from high schools. What rules are they playing by? Even for recruiting, you talked about the California game. I get a lot of emails. Realistically, am I going to get a go from Arizona to come to Montclair? I would love to if it's possible financially, but. And one girl sent me a video, and she was extending her hands in a blocking. That's not even part of our game at all here. And she said, she's allowed to extend her hands. I said, okay. Well, Again, so now we're talking about a different part of the country playing by different set of rules. So I think the NCAA, when this becomes an emerging sport, it's really got to be a concrete going across as far as what our rule base is going to be.
I think too, it's a phenomenal point. I think also what you have. But Derek brought up a great point with the referee thing. So, and the only reason I know is because we just experienced it with our own referee group that we work with a lot with our 7-on-7 and flag stuff. Those guys, they didn't do 7-on-7 until we kind of gave them 7-on-7. But the football guys, the regular football guys, do really well. It's with 7-on-7, right? Because it's similar to football rules, other than you're just passing, right? So it's not hard for them to. Flag is a completely different ball game.
Totally different.
The football guys can go do 7-on-7. I noticed the flag guys can go do 7-on-7. That's easy for both groups to kind of learn those rules. But the flag guys to go to tackle is very difficult. And the tackle guys to go to flag is very difficult because there's so many different types of rules. And I noticed our flag guys, right, and Derek, you correct me, really understand, like when we give them different rules from another league that they do flag in, they kind of can adapt pretty well. Like, okay, the only thing I need to really know is this group can run more. This group, this is where your first downs are. They understand it. But when you do that with a tackle guy and bring them the flag, it's hard for them because they've got a lot of things in their head with respect to tackle. It's like me trying to, when I learned Spanish, I keep translating it into English over and over again. You know what I mean? And it's a lot harder for me to do that and learn Spanish properly than if I just spoke it, right? And I think that's ultimately that's going to become more and more of a thing where you may have to get a pool of guys and girls who are refereeing that are really more, because it'll be so big that you'll be able to do this, that are making enough money that they're just doing flag, right?
Which will happen. But it's also, I think it's good too. Like a lot of those guys, like, look, similar faces, right? Like referees I saw in the spring doing girls flag were guys that I see in the fall doing, my varsity games, my JV games, the freshman, like it's the same guys. Cause look, they just want to be able to ref and make that extra money and get better. Right. So again, goes back to relationships and network. Like they want to be good. It's the same faces you see over and over. Hey, coach, like, oh man, you do this in the spring too. You know what I mean? Like, coach, I think it's phenomenal that you brought a ref in to kind of talk to the girls too, to understand that part of it for the most part, because look, some of these girls have never had formal referees, right? Like they have high school kids that are wearing striped shirts, reffing their, flag games, and it's just not the same. game. It's a piece to it that adds to it. You know what I mean? Like now here you are with like guys that are really throwing flags and telling them what they can and can't do. That's on us as coaches to give them that knowledge base and have that understanding, which only adds to their level of comfort within the game. They're worried about 1,000 other things as it is. The last thing they need to be worried about is like rules that we taught them the wrong way, you know? And like you said, go back to your point, Coach Shu, like schematically, yeah, that's going to matter. Like, am I going to spread it out and chuck it because that's what the rules base more, or do I need to put backs in the backfield and run the ball more because that's what it is? That's kind of how you're going to develop and form your teams based off of, you know, what it is. I think it's funny though, when you look at the high school world, right? Like you have high school boys teams that are a certain way when it comes to schematics and X's and O's. Everybody just assumes that that's what the girls flag team is going to be. And it's not even, you know what I mean? It's not even close. It's kind of funny when you expect the girls team to be like the boys team, even if it's the same. Now look, the same coach, you kind of have an inkling of like what they're going to do, but it's just different. And I think it all goes back to that rule interpretation of how you kind of do things. But the growth is unbelievable. We see teams being added every year. A new school adds it. And the first thing that, you know, other coaches with it, how can we help you? Like what you do, ask these questions, right? Because we're all trying to figure it out from a program standpoint where we just want to continue to have those numbers grow.
And I think it's going to continue. Like you said, it's not just at the high school level, the collegiate, the fraternity of coaches that are coaching at the collegiate level, and even in this league, they're reaching out to each other, trying to get games, trying to ask some different questions. And you know, like you said, the North game, I went and watched some North games in the last spring, and they were running pin and pull. Okay, they're running pin and I go down in the South, and like you said, they're throwing a ball all over the joint. So was a totally different game, but. Again, what are the rules going to be so that we can interpret, we can make sure run and pin and pull the correct way? Are we blocking the way you're supposed to be blocking? That's important going forward.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. I think that uniformity will make all the difference, and it'll make athletes. And honestly, the other thing is parents, right? So that will make parents. I mean, you know. That's who you're going to need to. They're starting to buy in. The girls are the thing that's built it so far. Are girls turning around to their parents and saying, "Hey, I want to do that." I think that's how it's gone so far. But that's probably your better athletes. You know what I mean?
Or they have an older brother of like, hey, I want to do what he's done. Or they've just been like they've been dragged to the field every night for practice as a youth thing with the brother. And they're, well, why can't I do this? Or, hey, like I play catch with my brother in the backyard every day, right? Like, why can't, like, I'm better than that kid that's out there. And I saw that this year, like within it, like there's a lot of like siblings or just girls that like, cheerleaders that were around the game and they're like, I don't need to be over here anymore. Like I'd rather go out here and pull flags and do that.
And I think the parents that's where the rules part becomes a big deal for the parents, I think.
Well, it goes back to, I think, safety too.
Correct.
Right?
They
want them to be healthy. They want them to understand
what is my daughter playing, right?
Correct.
What is she? Absolutely. Is this game like it? Because in their head they got to translate, right? Is this game like soccer? Is this game like lacrosse? Is it more like basketball? What is it regular football, which obviously the vast majority of parents are going to shy away from, right? Unless they have a really like strong physical daughter, they're going to shy away from initially, right? And so that's also where the rules, the parents going and turn around and saying, you know, if my daughter wants to be a flag football player full time, I'm cool with it. And because one of the things that we did notice is, at least I did notice this. I don't know if they're going, but the girls who are like a lot of our superstar standouts in the other sports they play already. So meaning athletes. They were great basketball, like at the young level. They're the best basketball player. They're the best lacrosse player. They're the best soccer player. And they're so competitive sports-wise, they see flag football and they're like, I want to do it. what we want to get is obviously those girls are slam dunks, right? I mean, there's no doubt. But we want to get these other girls who are really good athletes, like who may say to themselves, like, I'm not as physical as that soccer player is, right? But I'm a track star. I'm super fast, and I want them to be confident enough to go out for flag football and say, hey, you know what? Maybe you're when you go play receiver, it's not what you think. Like, you're not going to get lit up. You know what I mean? Come out for it. It's not. Then they learn, and then they get comfortable with the level. There is some level of physicality that's going to be involved, but they get comfortable with it. And I think they get parents to buy into that kind of thing. I think ultimately will really launch it into a whole nother world because to me, flag football, boys and girls, is very different than tackle football. And I think, you know, I've seen this in the tackle side of it at the youth level now, where sometimes it translates, meaning I'm talking about the boys side. There are flag football players that go right over to tackle. Phenomenal. Sometimes there are guys that are flag football players that, because of the physicality of tackle, like they're like, I don't know, like I'm a great soccer athlete and I'm great at flag football because I'm that kind of athlete. I'm that I like a level of physicality, but not an excessive level of physicality, right? So I've seen kids that are great soccer players be great in flag football, and you think, wow, but kid who's playing flag football that's a tackle football player is good at flag football, comes over to tackle, the kid's a stone cold killer, right? So it's there's translation and it relates, but not in all circumstances. And I think that's what's important too, to me, to differentiate the word football connotates a certain thing to people. And that flag football is football. They utilize a football, but it's not the same exact game. Like, to me, it's a conglomeration of basketball, soccer, football, lacrosse, all in one. You know what I mean? That's what flag football to me is. It's not football, tackle football, which, you know, I need those big old boys to come down and push some people around and knock people off the ball. Like, that's going to be a part of that game no matter what you do, unless the NFL just says, hey, we're going to put flags. Which I don't know.
Which they've already done with the Pro Bowl.
Which maybe they will do anyway. I don't know. But you know, do you kind of agree with that? Do you disagree with that?
No, I agree. It is two different games. In other words, it's a flag football is a collegiate sport, and it's not traditional football. In other words, but there are components, like you said, and you hit the nail on the head. There's a big component with basketball as far as shielding. In other words, setting what you would call a pick or a type of block. It was more like a basketball pick. Even if you were picking, and going back to Derrick's point about the rule interpretation, the official came in, he made a great point. If you have a blitzer coming off the edge, okay, your job as the back is to get to that point first before the blitzer gets her. The blitzer has to go around you now rather than going through you. Think about basketball, if they went through you, it'd be an offensive foul, it'd be a charge. So that's the correlation. So I thought, yeah, you're right on that. It's definitely a different sport. There's finesse involved. There's athleticism. There is some physicality as far as going after something, you know, knowing an angle and stuff like that. But as far as the physicality of traditional football, absolutely not. But in other words, scheme-wise, depending on what you're running, I've gone to games and people run the mesh concept. Yeah. So we could turn on the playoffs this weekend and see mesh. In other words, but there's a team that's throwing the ball. Then you have teams that are running toss, option, or counter. So all those facets as far as schematically, but the actual game itself is totally different from a men's traditional football game and a flag football game. Great point.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like I've run schemes that are like basketball schemes with my flag football team, where I'm running guys off and to create a space for a guy a little bit more like I would with basketball, meaning they're not going that far down the field to do this. Where on a pass, because your linemen aren't as much involved, so I could do some of that kind of stuff. Whereas if there was 5 linemen there, like I wouldn't be dropping a guy over the ball a yard and running the guy off and coming around, right? So It's really, really cool. So it's a combination of those kind of things. And I think that is the appeal that is the greatest appeal, in my opinion, to flag football. Flat out, it's fun. Like, there's no kid that goes and plays, no matter how much the competition is. And it's one of the only sports that I've watched, even though, with younger kids it's different, but in high school kids too, from a competitive standpoint, where you get in the championship game, at the end they might cry if they lose or something like that. But for the most part, even if you ask them if they lost, like, you could go ask a kid as he's coming off the field, did you have a great time? I'm telling you, they're going to it is like 9 out of 10 times they're saying they had a great time. Whereas if you played a tackle game and you got beat up, like, there might be some kids walking off the field and say that wasn't fun. Like I hate saying it because I live for football, because that's the world I live in, as far as like that I enjoy, that my mind goes to. But I see it just when I ask kids that are going off, and I'll look at a score. Kid had a great time, smiling, right? I'm looking at the score and I'm like, oh my God, it was 40-12. They lost. This kid's walking off with a smile and a happy, because it's a different game. There's a different component to it. And that part is, I say, that's probably what the NFL sees too, is really great about it. Like, you're going out and competing, and maybe it's because you didn't get beat up, that you walk off and you're like, everything's still working, everything's there, and you had a great time doing it. So I think that's really interesting. It's a fascinating, really, really fascinating. And I think on the women's side, it to me is another way to lift up women, to give them an opportunity to feel really great about themselves, in sport, and it gives another avenue for them that is different, because that is another spot that makes up that Title IX thing, that they have a great time playing it. It's another avenue for them. It's another avenue for them to feel great about themselves. Where obviously throughout time, boys have had that avenue forever, and now this is another avenue that creates that. Any kind of final thoughts on that stuff, Jim?
Yeah, and I equate that to right now. Carol Blazkowski, if you know, the Blaze. I'm at Montclair State University. I've had this story with her. When she played in high school, when she went to play, she started a girls' team at Cranford High School. Okay, from what the story has been told. Okay, and obviously her career here, she played at Montclair. They played UCLA, and I believe they were in the Final Four. She was on the Pan American team, the Olympic team. She was a WNBA GM. That's going to be a story evolving out of flag football, whether it be here or somewhere else. I'm hoping it's here, because I want to lead it that way. My point that's where the game is going. In other words, there's going to be great stories that are going to come out of the game of flag football. There was a starting point, but it's going to keep on evolving to follow up. Today, this has been great, because I think the people out there have to realize that what you're seeing now in flag football, you didn't see 2 years ago, and 2 years from now, you're not going to see this. You're going to see something else keep on growing. And it's not only in the States, United States, internationally, talking to the Jets and the Giants personnel, they've been all over the world. And the difference is they play 5-on-5s instead of 7s internationally. But it's a game that's evolving throughout the entire world, which is fantastic.
No doubt. It has a tremendous opportunity to be a really well-run global sport. There's no doubt. It just has the components of that. And you could find that's the thing. You could find athletes that can play that, right? You could find plenty of body types that can play that, and the athleticism. And like I said, because soccer's so big around the world, to me, it's very easy, and basketball is so big around the world, it's easy to talk to them about this, internationally. Like, you show them what flag football is, and their mind can go to similarities to basketball, similarities to soccer. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just different in this area and that area. I'm using my, basketball, you use your hands. Obviously, soccer, you use your feet. Flag football, you're using both, right? So, and that's a big component of it. And I love this conversation. I think we're going to need to have more and more of these kind of conversations. But But it's
love
been
that.
really great having you on.
I would love to have you come up in the spring, obviously, to watch one of our games, and
Okay.
later on, hopefully when the weather breaks a little bit warmer, depending when you come up and watch some of our games, then we can obviously revisit where we were and where we're going in the future of the sport. I appreciate
You know what I like to do, Jim? You brought this up. I'd like to, when you have your schedule and you think of a game that might be good for people to come up, I'd like to send it out to our girls, like that are and say, hey, listen, we'd like you to go see a college flag game so you could see what it is. Because I think quite a few of our girls would go as long as they don't have something going on,
100%.
right?
I think boys would go.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And send them out to them. Like, I mean, I have two parents in my head right now that are always involved with our stuff. That immediately they get that email that they'll want to do it, right? So to send their daughters to go and watch it. But yeah, like send us that schedule, because I'll put that out to them and say, hey, listen, this would be a great night for all you girls to be able to go down there and watch college flag football. Because once you visualize that, right, and the high school part is very important. But I always thought, and I'm sure Derek did, the first time I saw a college game, like I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, That's what I want to play. Like, not just TV, but when I walked in there and I heard the crowd roaring, although my crowd in college was a lot smaller than the crowd that I went to, but that crowd was roaring, and I said, yeah, I want to be in the middle of that. Like, that's something I want to be in the middle of. I want to be out there and people are cheering me or booing me. I wanted that, right? And I think girls will see that and say, I want that.
I'm all in. That sounds great. Let's put that on the calendar. I'm all in with that. That's fantastic.
No doubt.
Thanks very much. I
appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Hey, have a great holidays. Happy New Year to you, and go Red Hawks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll talk soon, Coach. Appreciate you.
Take care.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Phenomenal stuff, dude. That's like, oh, I wish I could move now. See, this should move, right? Don't you think that this should automatically move me back to without me having to? I guess they just
StreamYard, buddy. Okay, well, I don't know.
I had to do that, but yeah, I should okay, he disappears. Boom, move us to a new look. That's professional. No, that's how it should be.
Look, I've learned that I don't. Whatever they do, I'm still trying to figure out the method. I've given up on figuring out why they do things the way they do.
I think they're integrate. This is what I think. AI is becoming a big part of what they're trying to integrate, right? And as they integrate it to an existing system instead of building a new system, probably be easier if they built a new. Right. They probably are building a new system in the background.
But while that's happening, they're doing it this way.
Right. Because I think when you want to integrate AI, which is great because it cuts up clips for you automatically and all those things, when you want to integrate, throw it into some old code, it probably screws it all up without knowing any in-depth thing about it. But that's probably what happens. It starts to get all crazy and wonky, and you're better off actually building it from scratch, and you don't have all that mess. So until you have that built, you're kind of left with, and then all of a sudden, I guarantee we'll log in one day and be like, "Welcome to StreamYard 3.0. Now everything will, be integrated automatically. You don't have to worry about this. It moves like the." I think that's part of it, and I'd love to change, but I'm a a creature of habit in the sense that I have to go
because then then we got to go figure out something new, and then we got to troubleshoot. Then we got to troubleshoot that.
Yeah. So I'd rather I know the devil that this is. If they could just add a couple of I don't even know it's add, but make it easier that if something's going wrong, we can get in and out quicker. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You're Derek stuck. Click him off and click him back on. I'm literally. And he comes back so it's a 1 second thing instead of becomes a 2-3 minute thing.
100%.
Your connection sucks. Click out and click back in, right now, and you'll be back, and you'll be like something like that, All right, we should be they should make us the consultants that they could give us like $5,000 a month, and we could just give them tips. We'll take that.
Be like, hey, if you're in a school system, like you ain't getting Wi-Fi, so figure it out.
What? Right.
Like let me cut off the hassle, like, and all the nonsense you're gonna like mess with for the next 10 minutes and just go on your phone.
Jim's Wi-Fi was great.
Well, Montclair State, so he was at his office. Like, he said that to me. He's like, hey, like, it would be good. I'll just do it right from my office and be able to go from there. And I'm like, man, Girls Flag has their own office too, huh? Like, all right, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, little buy-in things like that. Like,
I think it's him being an alumni,
that too. Like,
in the area.
Like I said, a familiar face, right? Like, he knows the ins and the outs of the school itself, right? Like, the athletic director, understands who he is on different levels. I mean, the fact that they've did a year as a club, I think, is a big part, you know what I mean, to kind of grow
right.
and kind of see, like, you know what, like, okay, let's now dive in and go. And look, and I'm sure there'll be some hiccups or whatever it is, like, throughout the first season within the conference itself, and just kind of figuring it out and going from there. But look, I think they have a really, really good thing moving forward, a great foundation. And like you said, like, the growth of the sport is going to happen regardless. Like, it's just a matter of, like, which way they want to go with it.
Do we have anything tomorrow? No, right?
No, we're good. Okay. We're good till after the holiday.
All right. Well, for you, Derek, have a Merry Christmas.
You too, buddy.
And everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate, enjoy it. And we appreciate everybody watching the show and the guests, actually, most importantly, right?
It's been awesome.
It's been really good. Like, this year we've done, we really covered the gamut, eventually we'll figure out how that we can monetize this so we don't do too many other things.
Hey man, you know what I mean? Like, it's been good though. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, looking at how many we've done and kind of like where it started and how it's like formed and kind of come out, you know what I mean? Like, I think the viewership and just that like diving into so many different type of worlds, yet staying in the same kind of lane, I guess, you know what I mean? But venturing out a little bit and touching base with a lot of different, people across the board. Like, it's been really cool, really awesome to see that network kind of develop, and, hopefully our guests enjoy it,
Yeah, no doubt. I think they do. All right. Have a great Christmas.
Have a good holiday, buddy. We'll talk.
See you after. Absolutely.
All right, man.